applying for a permanent residency now.
Wow.
So it's not an easy process. It's an expensive process, and it's a time-consuming one.
Right,
I will say that Royal LePage's website saw a huge uptick in traffic on Canadian pages in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But again, that's people browsing. That's where the move starts, just that online query.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a long way from there to actually moving here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do know of another agent who did start getting requests from the U.S. about looking for properties hereafter, because I think that there's so many Canadians. I mean, you're right. The process to immigrate here is a lot of work, but I think that we have so many Canadians who've gone down there to work that for them, it's now, okay, maybe it's time to come home and raise your family in a safer country.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point as well. And one that I haven't seen very many people address, but sure, if you can get a job lined up here or transfer to the Canadian branch of whatever international corporation you're working for,
mm-hmm.
I could definitely see that happening.
Absolutely. Can you give us a little insight about some of the kinds of stories that you might be working on now or that are coming up soon? Sure.
So partly we've made a little bit more of a focus on the commercial real estate market of late.
Yeah.
Recently we spoke to Michael Emery, CEO of Allied, who
mm-hmm.
are, they're also partaking in mixed-use projects as well now. But so we're, ramping up commercial coverage, and kind of seasonally, we're going to be doing some kind of Chinese New Year focused coverage. We're going to be looking at if there's been noticeable booms. We're going to go through some data and try and see how much of an impact that has on transactions in certain markets.
Cool.
And things of that nature, just based on that, because a report just came out this week, or at least some information was sent to me this week from Zhuai, that the Chinese property portal, it hooks up, Chinese buyers with international properties.
Yeah.
And they can kind of reach agents through that channel. And, they say that a lot of at least wealthier investors from China will, during their Chinese New Year vacation, typically pick a locale in which they might like to buy property and kind of mix business with pleasure. They'll go on vacation, and while they're there, they will check out some listings, scope out properties they're considering, and maybe even make a purchase while on vacation.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, Josh, I always like to ask everyone, so whether they rent or own and what part of the city that they live in. So whereabouts are you located?
So I rent. I have been a consistent renter since moving out and since starting to work as a journalist. I live in Little Portugal around College and Lansdowne. Prior to that, I was at near DuPont and Lansdowne. I'm pretty enamored of the West End.
Yeah.
It's up and coming. Lansdowne, for some, I'm sure buyers or renters may trigger some dark images. It didn't used to be the best area, but it's completely transformed, and now there's just a lot of interesting retail and amenities. There's a lot of breweries. I live almost across the street from a brewery and just down the road from another one. Music venues.
Right.
And on the renting note, Alex Avery came out with a book. He's a CIBC number cruncher.
Yep.
Called The Wealthy Renter. I haven't read it yet. I want to read it. He argues in investing money rather than taking on a mortgage. I don't think it's a book against home ownership.
Right.
More so a way to perhaps finance it later on down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, you have to be diligent with your investments and where you're putting in money, and be disciplined to put money away, right?
Of course. I mean, I think for me, of course, I guess people will say that, I'm one-sided, but, well, maybe I am. I do think with the home ownership that it's a forced savings because, yes, I've seen a lot of those articles about, if you pay rent and then you invest the rest of the money, and I think, well, how many of us are diligent enough to invest the rest of that money? The thing I like with home ownership, it forces you to invest that money. But like I said,
absolutely. And
maybe those are just my thoughts about it. So then do you see yourself as a homeowner or a condo owner later on, or you feel that you want to rent for a while, or what's your story?
I would be fine with renting, indefinitely, but I also could foresee myself owning. I would actually only be interested in whether it doesn't have to be a detached, it could be a row house, even a townhouse.
Yep.
I don't have an interest in condos, to be honest, because of the maintenance fees.
Mm.
Now, the condo board's in place for a reason, to kind of curb outrageous increases. Legally, there is no limit, though, you know, but that's why the condo board exists, to keep things in check, right?
Yeah, of course.
But even if the fee, you know, I'm seeing some maintenance fees that I'm just not comfortable with, especially because I probably wouldn't use many of the amenities, say.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, I'm not a gym person. For some people, the maintenance fees goes into that. They don't have to have a gym membership, you know. But for me, the things I do, there aren't clubs in condos as yet. Maybe if there's a disco or underground dance music club in a condo and my maintenance fees go towards that, then maybe I would consider.
That's great. Plus, I mean, you're riding your bike to work, so you're already getting your workout. So I could see, why would you care for a gym?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So how can our listeners reach you if they have any questions, and where can they find BuzzBuzzHome?
Sure. So, you know, it's just BuzzBuzzHome.com, so BuzzBuzzHome.com. And the news site is just put news dot in front of that address. I can be reached at just Josh, Josh, at BuzzBuzzHome.com. Yeah, I encourage anybody, not only with questions, but any story tips. We're always looking for new story ideas, and I'd definitely like to be getting more emails about that, and it makes my job easier, and it leads to some interesting stories that might not have otherwise gotten covered.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us today, Josh. It's been great to have you here.
Likewise.
Awesome. Thanks. Talk to you later. Thanks again for joining us for some Toronto real estate market insights. You can visit my website at morrisonsellsrealestate.com or visit morrisontalksrealestate.com for more episodes of the podcast. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to The Morrison Report. Hosted by Deval Morrison, sales representative for Bosley Real Estate Limited Brokerage, real estate investor and best-selling author, bringing you insights on the Toronto real estate market. Join us for another podcast.